Good afternoon, FHC. I appreciate you taking part in today's PD. Today we have half of you split up. Half are in a traditional PD presentation and half are going to watch a series of videos. We're doing that because Mrs. Bova is our only McQuill trainer and as a result can't be in two places at once. So we have spent some time on objectives. We spent some time on the 5 elements of establishing classroom learning environment. When we are walking through classrooms in our walkthroughs, we're determining what level of impact that's having on implementation of those focuses. Objectives is the one we spent the most time on, and I think it's time for you to reflect on seeing some of those practices put into place in a classroom and allowing you to provide some feedback as to what elements of objective is being played out. So today you're going to watch some videos of Mrs. Bova teaching a class. You're going to get a sense of some of those objective elements and look-fors, and have some time in your PLC team to have some conversations around what that would look like in your classroom. So I'm very excited about being in a building where we value our own professional learning. I'm a big believer that if we are learning, our students will learn with us. So thank you for taking part and giving a great effort. FHC, you're awesome.
Hi, this is Jessica Bulva, and I'll be co-facilitating this PD along with your PLC leader. The objective of today's PD is to understand what tweaks we can make in our classroom to ensure that we are setting objectives in a way that most benefits our students. In August, I presented to the faculty about setting objectives, and we reviewed those research recommendations at a later faculty meeting. Setting objectives is one of the strategies in the first component, so it should be a priority for every lesson, every student, every day. Take a moment and personalize today's objective by sharing your successes and struggles with setting objectives in your classroom. What do you want to focus on grasping by the end of today's session? Before planning today's PD, Sunny Lucas and I reflected on our walkthrough data and decided to focus on setting objectives. Feel free to pause here and process through this data. Today you are going to watch 2 videos from a lesson I taught to both sections of my English 2 students about organizational patterns in nonfiction literature. Each person in the PLC is getting a handout that lists the district look-fors for setting objectives, and that handout provides each teacher with room for jotting down observations and ideas about each video. Each PLC is also getting 1 packet of student resources that were either referenced or used during this lesson. While watching each video, notice which look-fors are present and which look-fors are missing or could be improved upon. After each video, pause and discuss what you saw with your PLC.
You were introduced to problem solution, compare contrast, cause effect, chronological, order of importance, and classification, right? Yes, I know what I'm doing. Yeah. And there was one more, description. And description. So at the end of the hour, you did an exit slip. You just got that back. Some of you guys turned it in because you finished the class. Some of you chose to take it home. I told you it wasn't one of those like assessment sort of things. I really just wanted to see, do you know these organizational patterns? So I either passed it out to you or you got it out of your binder if you still had it from yesterday. I'm going to tell you what the answers are. I want you to grade yourself, and we're going to go from there. So today we are talking about organizational patterns, but we're going to a deeper level. So your objective today is that you're trying to figure out and understand why authors organize the literature and the way they do. So what is the whole purpose? If an author is organizing something, there's a reason behind it. They don't just wake up and think, I'm going to write this compare contrast. Think about video games today. They are instead thinking, I want to convey this about video games. What organizational pattern will help me get there most effectively? And then they organize the literature in that way to accomplish that purpose. So we're going to talk about that today. So you are getting an article, and you are going to be the expert. Your pod is going to be the expert on that article. So you'll notice like pod 1 is getting the red article. All right. You are going to become the expert in this article. Before we jump in, you have a placemat on your table. I want you to number each box on the outside 4 boxes 1, 2, 3, 4. You're either student 1, 2, 3, or 4. So before you start reading this article, I want you to look over it. Vernon, And I want you to make some predictions about what you think this article is going to be about. So I'm going to show you what that looks like with this pink article, since we don't have a pink pod today. Then you're going to do the same thing with your article that you've been assigned. You are going to have 2 minutes to skim and scan your article, make a prediction in your box for the skill you've been assigned. Okay, so you guys have looked at your article, you've read it once, and you kind of looked at things for what are you predicting your tone is, what are you predicting the main idea and supporting details are, what are you predicting the author's purpose to be, what is it mostly about, and how do you know. So read and underline, and then anything from your predictions that you're like, yep, I was right, check mark. I'm going to give you 4 minutes to do that. You made some predictions, you then went and you read your article. The next thing is that we are going to figure out how the author organized the information. So I want you guys to decide as a pod, what is the organizational pattern of this passage? You're going to write it in the middle box, but you're going to have other things to write in that middle box. So go ahead and talk about it as a pod and figure out how is it organized. So your next job that you are going to do in the middle box is write down why the author uses that organizational pattern. So if you need to erase, if I could have your attention, please. Thank you. So you already identified, you had that surface level of this is the organizational pattern that the author used. Now I want you to tell me why the author uses that organizational pattern. They didn't wake up, like I said, and think, I'm going to write compare and contrast today about video games. Instead, they woke up and they thought, I'm going to convey this. I'm going to use this organizational pattern to help me accomplish that. So what is it that they want to accomplish? And they're using that. Yeah, that's what you want to write in that middle box. You got this graphic organizer. In previous units that we've been doing in this technology, big technology unit, we've had these little sub sort of units or topics. We had technology in education, we had technology in the job market. But the big idea would be video games. It's all about video games. At the end of this, you are going to be taking a stance on a claim about video games. So you'll notice that that claim is on the top of your handout. It says, video games do more harm than good. You are either going to argue that you agree, you're going to support that claim that video games do more harm than good, or you are going to argue, no, video games do more good than harm, okay? So, there are 7 articles, and this is the graphic organizer we've been filling out, but you're in charge of filling this out for the article that you've been assigned. So you need to write down what the tone is, what organizational pattern the author uses and why. Then you need to find quotes from the article. So you are gonna, you can highlight the quotes, just like we did in previous units. You highlight the quote in the article, or underline it in the article, and then paraphrase it in the chart. So if you remember, the whole point of paraphrasing it is that you're not just copying it from one place to another. Paraphrasing it is showing that you understand. Have reread your article, underlined evidence. What you're going to do next is you're going to teach everyone else. You're going to say, hey, this is an article I had. This was the tone. This was the organizational pattern. This is why. This is the organizational, or why the author chose that organizational pattern. And here's my evidence. All right, guys, if I could have your attention, today I really wanted to accomplish 2 things. I wanted you to read your article and know that this is the organizational pattern my author uses, and this is why. They wanted to accomplish this purpose and just use that organizational pattern to help them. I also wanted you to then become the expert on your article for filling out that graphic organizer, because the next step is that you guys are going to be hypothetically writing a whole essay about this topic. I'm not going to make you write the whole thing, but that would be the next step. I'm going to synthesize these to then write an essay. You've been synthesizing and then writing a constructed response. This time I'm going to have you synthesize and then you're going to actually outline an essay. I'm not going to make you write it, but I'm going to make you outline it. So, and the reason we're doing that is to get us ready for that performance task where you have to write that synthesis essay at the end about a whole different topic, where you're writing a 6-paragraph essay about a topic. We're just outlining it today. So I wanted you to know organizational patterns and prep for writing that synthesis outline over video game.
The reason we are watching these videos today is because we wanted to give you the opportunity to reflect on another teacher's use of setting objectives. By reflecting, you can determine what tweaks you can make to the way you set objectives in your classroom in order to benefit student learning. Pause and discuss what you notice as a PLC in this video and reflect on the use of research recommendations for setting objectives. Now that you've talked about the video as a PLC, compare your reflection and feedback to my observations. While watching this video, you'll notice many similarities because I'm teaching the same lesson to another class period. Similarly to video 1, use the look-fors to determine the strengths, weaknesses, and next steps in regard to the use of setting objectives.
So yesterday we learned the different organizational patterns that authors use in their writing. So we have things like chronological, compare, contrast, cause, effect, problem, solution, order of importance. Help me out, what are the last two? Description and classification. Thank you. So we have these seven different organizational patterns that we're using when we're talking about how authors organize what they do. That's where we were yesterday. Today we're going to take that same skill of organizational patterns, but we're going to go deeper into that learning. So you have an exit slip that you did at the end of class yesterday. The bell rang, some people were done, so I said just finish it up. The point for me wasn't about seeing you are getting this grade, but I just wanted to know, like, okay, I introduced you to these organizational patterns. Do you get it? Could you just identify on a basic surface level, here's the text, I could say, yes, this is cause effect. So I want you to grade yourself. You're just going to say, yeah, I got it right or got it wrong. And then I'm going to ask you in a second to set a goal or a purpose for your learning today based on how you did on that exit slip. So grade yourself. If I know my job today is to figure out why authors choose the organizational pattern, what do I as a student need to focus on today to make sure I learn that by the end of the hour? And if asking you to like, what? These are just different sentence starters that you're like, oh, okay, I've got that. And go ahead and write that on your Post-it note. Example, if you're sitting there struggling with, I don't know what to focus on, I need to focus on the difference between classification and compare-contrast because they are pretty similar and I sometimes get them mixed up.
Thanks.
Okay, what I would like you guys to do now is I want you to turn to your shoulder partner. I want you to explain to them, hey, this is what I want to get out of today to make sure I learn this. You're just reading them what's on your Post-it. We've been seeing graphic organizers throughout this whole technology unit. I've been giving you different sources, maybe about technology and education. You know, maybe about technology affecting the job market. Another one we did was about Netflix. We did one about cell phone addiction. Our little mini unit that we're focusing on the next couple days, that unifying like main idea or topic of our literature, is going to be all focused on video games. Here's your claim. Video games do more harm than good. I'm not saying that's my opinion, so. But that's what you are at the end of this unit are going to argue. So we're doing two things. We are analyzing this literature for organizational patterns, but our end goal over the next few days is that you are going to be able to take a stance on that claim. When you're taking a stance on that claim, you're going to be able to pull from the different pieces of literature that we're using. And those are the different pieces of literature that we're going to analyze for, is it cause and effect? Is it problem solution? And why does the author organize it in that way? So the only thing that's different in this chart than in the charts that we've seen in previous little units we've done in this technology unit is I added a column for tone, because that skill's coming up on our test for this unit, and organizational pattern. Why does the author organize it in this way? So yesterday you learned how to identify it, so that's what you have to do in this column, and today you're learning to discuss why the author does it in that way, and so you're going to add in those notes here. We're getting to this spot, we're not there yet. The reason I passed this out is because I wanted you to know where we were going later in the class period. So sit this to the side. Each pod has been assigned an article. If I pass them out or I come on my game, you should have an article that's the same color as your pod color. So the red pod should have the red article. What you're going to do now, we did some pre-reading prediction. Now you're going to do your first draft read. You know that by the end of the class, you're going to be analyzing an article, figuring out what the author's organizational pattern is and why. Before we can even go there, you need to have read the article and know what it means. So that's why we're going to do a first draft read. What is this article all about? You went through, you did some pre-reading prediction about, I just skim and scan this article, and I'm guessing that it's about this. Then you went back and you did a first draft read of that article, and you took some notes on tone, author's purpose, text features, main idea, and supporting details. Now is where we're getting closer to figuring out how is it organized and why. Because your purpose today is to know not only, yes, this is how an author organizes their information, but more specifically, why. Why does the author organize it in this way? And that's going to tie into, they organize it in this way in order to accomplish this purpose. That's why they use this tone, those sort of things. So you will notice on the board it says, how does the author organize that information? That's just that surface level, I'm going to identify that it's cause and effect. I want you guys to discuss as a pod, come up with what it is, write it in that center box. How does the author organize the information? All right, pod 4, what's your organizational pattern?
I got classification.
Okay. Oh, pod 7 and 4, think theirs.
Fight.
Okay. Pod 5? Chronological. Anybody else think chronological? Here's what we're going to do. I want student 1 and 2 from pod 1 to switch place with student 1 and 2 from pod 3. I want students from 1 and 2, student 1 and 2 from pod 7 to switch places with student 1 and 2 from pod 7. So go ahead and switch places. I want you to switch papers with the new people at your pod. I want you to read that person's article. I'm going to give you 4 minutes. You're not analyzing it. And then after that, you're going to talk with those people of, well, which one's really classification? Which one's really problem solution? At this point, you should know what your organizational pattern is. And tomorrow what we're going to do is analyze, well, now I know this is how my author organizes it. Tomorrow we're going to continue this lesson by figuring out why the author organizes it in that way and come back to those ideas. So I want you to keep your article with you. I want you to look at your Post-it note, and on the bottom of your Post-it note, or on the back of your Post-it note, you wrote down what you wanted to get out of today. I want you to jot down a note of how much closer you are. Have you accomplished it yet? If not, we're going to accomplish that tomorrow when we continue this lesson. So jot that down on your Post-it. Post-it notes you're going to leave on my desk on your way out of class today.
Just as you reflected on the first video, discuss what you noticed in this clip, focusing on the research recommendations for setting objectives. By reflecting on this video and comparing it to the first one, you should be able to see how I made tweaks to improve student learning. Seeing the tweaks I made is intended to help you do the same. Again, now that you've talked about this video as a PLC, compare your reflection and feedback to my observations. The purpose of today's PD is for you to make tweaks to how you set objectives with your students based on the reflections you made from today's videos. As a PLC, discuss what setting objectives would look like in your content area with all 4 research recommendations in place. Before planning today's PD, Sunny Lucas and I considered the walkthrough data that shows that FHC teachers aren't fully implementing all 4 research recommendations with setting objectives. At the same time, survey data from teachers has indicated that most of you want to move on to other classroom instruction that works strategies. When deciding to create this video of a real lesson right here at FHC, I was hoping that you'd walk away from today with a better understanding of what the research recommendations could look like and do look like in practice. Creating this video and reflecting on my use of all 4 research recommendations for setting objectives was a significant learning experience for me. I hope each of you can walk away from today's PD with a focus on how you can tweak your lessons to ensure that you are setting objectives in a way that benefits our students. Thank you, FHC. Each of you should have received an evaluation via email from Darlena. Please complete this evaluation before leaving today so we can meet your PD needs in the future. Thanks again.